It's now my great pleasure to introduce our commencement speaker, Larry Sanger. Larry graduated from Reed in 1991, received his PhD in philosophy from Ohio State University in 2000. His studies in philosophy at Reed nurtured a fascination with epistemology, the theory of knowledge. As we all know, Larry Sanger is credited as being a co-founder of Wikipedia by just about everyone, except apparently the other co-founder of Wikipedia. I decided to get to the bottom of this dispute, and in the process to figure out why Larry became disaffected with Wikipedia. So I looked up the entry on Larry Sanger in, well, Wikipedia, of course. And here is what it said. And I quote, Larry Sanger attended Reed College in Portland, Maine. Where he majored in astrology. He then studied philately at the Ohio State Penitentiary. And years later, he falsely claimed credit for inventing the internet, discovering global warming, and discovering the general theory of relativity. Well, you get my point. The reality, of course, is that few people in our era have done more to challenge the way we think about the development and the testing, the sharing and the building of knowledge than Larry Sanger. From the exploratory idea of Newpedia, to the radical idea of Wikipedia, to the moderated idea of citizendium, Larry has invented a lot of crazy names and has taken a truly amazing journey through the theory and the practice of knowledge. His voyage echoes the complex interactive process of knowledge building that he experienced at Reed College in its classrooms 20 years ago. And so his story is an object lesson for each of you, that each of you in the class of 2010 can take Reed College's radical honesty out into the world, and in the process of forever reinventing yourself, reinvent a corner of the world as well. So please join me in welcoming home our commencement speaker, Larry Sanger.
Thanks very much for that very kind introduction. Since this is a commencement speech, I thought I'd begin with some cliches. But I should also warn you that I majored in philosophy, and so I may seem to wander a bit before reaching my point. In 1989, when I was an undergraduate here at Reed, somehow I got it into my foolish head that it would be a good idea to wander around to different professors' offices and ask them, with no preamble, what is the most important thing in life in a word? I think this is one of those only at Reed things. The professors were all willing to answer me, and only one or two actually expressed much surprise that I was asking the question. Anyway, a few professors gave the stock answer, happiness. I think that's what Ellen Stauder said. David Reeve, the famous scholar of Greek philosophy, discussed what Aristotle would say and offered the answer practical wisdom, or at least that's what I seem to remember him saying. The last person that I asked was Marv Levitch, who later became my thesis advisor. I remember he gave me one of his "are you crazy" looks. I think he mumbled a few things with some annoyance, and I think he concluded knowledge, but without much conviction. But then I offered an answer of my own, which was integrity, and Professor Levitch was kind enough to concede that that was plausible as well. I still think that integrity is important, and I'm going to talk about it now, if only because it seems so rare to talk about it anymore. I'm going to back my way into the topic by first addressing a cliched question: what is the meaning of life? And in fact, I'm going to begin with a cliched answer to this question. If I were to ask you what the meaning of life was, there's a good chance you would say happiness. This one-word answer is, of course, not very helpful because different things make different people happy. So we're supposed to find our own happiness, which generally takes the form of our life's project, our bliss. For many people, the meaning of life question that then seems to devolve on the question of where to go to graduate school and what profession to take up, as if the meaning of life were best answered with the help of a good career counselor. As if a person who had chosen a career that is a good match with his talents and proclivities would then necessarily have a meaningful life. Call it the career counseling approach to the meaning of life question. There are many things to say about all of this. Despite being banal, there does seem to be something to it. At least it's not probably totally wrong. But the problem that I have with it is that it does not really seem to scratch the itch which impels us to ask about the meaning of life in the first place. Suppose I decide that I would be happiest if I became a professor. Well, I could be convinced of that answer, but still wonder what the meaning of my life is. This cliched answer, we find meaning in work that makes us happy, can fail to satisfy, I think. Isn't there something embarrassing about earnestly asking what is the meaning of life? And not merely because the question is hackneyed. I think it's embarrassing because the meaning of your life is supposed to be some overarching goal that makes it possible for you to bound out of bed in the morning and work with gusto all day. The question is a confession, it can be a confession, that you have no such goal. You seem pathetically to lack such a motive, and you're adrift, rudderless in your life. And why do people find themselves rudderless? Not merely because they're feeling philosophical. I think it's because they do not believe their own narrative about the purpose of their own life in particular, and they are angst-ridden about how to revise it. Perhaps they discover that they have been dishonest with themselves, or perhaps some major life change requires that they shift their priorities. Whatever the reason, the people who earnestly ask this question about their own lives and don't know how to answer it do not really seem to care so much about any life project. This angst often seems embarrassing and maybe a little shameful. But why is it, apart from being a cliche? After all, doesn't a person without a purpose in life deserve our sympathy rather than our contempt? Well, I have a theory about all this. I think that whatever else might give our lives meaning, other people figure into the equation. We are essentially social beings. So, if we confess to a sense of meaninglessness, others perceive that we don't care about other people or ourselves. To come to grips with this whole problem, think not just of what people live for, but what they die for. We do not say that heroes who die fighting for a just cause or to save other people had meaningless lives because they did not have a career or because their lives were short. In fact, it makes good sense to say that their sacrifice gave their lives a profound meaning. We honor self-sacrifice for a just cause, and people whose professions put their lives on the line rightly hold up honor as a key component in what gives their lives meaning. A soldier who storms a hill knowing he's about to die evidently believes that his life's meaning is fulfilled by that act. We can take that as a clue. I have discovered, as so many others have before me, that what I ultimately care about is other people. My wife, my little boy, my extended family, my friends, my colleagues, and society in general. I suspect that this is true of everyone, or nearly everyone. I'm not making the claim now that this is what we should care about. I'm making the claim that this is what we do, in fact, care about, even people who are corrupt or criminal.